Let's spice up the visuals and add a custom block entity renderer to our mod. Alright, we found some back intelligence more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding a custom block entity renderer to our block entity. Basically the idea is we have this little tray in our block entity, and right in there I want to render a specific item that is either going to be the item in the input slot or the item in the output slot. And to achieve this, we're going to make a custom block entity renderer. But first and foremost, we need to somehow get the actual item stack that is inside of there. So let's go into the block entity class and actually add that. So for this, we're going to make a public item stack. This is just going to be a new method. I'm going to call this the getRenderStack method right here. There you go. And we'll do it like this. We're going to say if item handler dot get stack in slot output slot dot is empty, then we're going to return item handler dot get stack in slot input slot. Else, if the output slot is not empty, then we're going to return what is in the output slot. Very straightforward, nothing too crazy over here, just some basic Java. Now, this is not everything just yet, because in order to have everything synchronized properly, we need to do 3 different things. The first one is to get the item stack handler made into an anonymous class over here. That's just done by making curly brackets right here. And then instead of here, we want to override the onContentsChanged method. And we want to do a few things. We want to, first of all, call the setChange method, and then we want to do an if level is client side, and please denote the exclamation mark right here that it is not client side, right? So this, whatever happens in here, should only be done on the server. I don't know if this is strictly necessary. However, this is one of the things that I did do, so I think that that's going to be fine. And then here we want to call level.sendBlockUpdated, get block pause, get block state, get block state, and then a flag of 3. This is going to synchronize it every time there is a change in the item handler. So for example, we were to, let's go to our craft item, this one right here, right? When we set the stack in slot, then that would be called, and we would basically refresh the block itself, sending a block update to everyone around so that everyone knows, oh, this block has been updated. And then lastly, this is just a convention. I like to put those methods at the very bottom. We want to override the getUpdate packet method as well as the getUpdate tag method. In the update packet method, we're just going to return a client bound entity data packet. So this is the client bound block entity data packet dot create, passing in this. Please once again note that this is specific to 120.1. I believe in 120.2 this has changed. So keep that in mind. All of the networking pretty much has changed, so just be aware of that. I'm unsure if this would work 100%. And then here in the getUpdate tag method, we just want to call the save without metadata method right here. And this is going to allow us to properly have the render stack method right here synchronized. So when we're going to use it in the block entity renderer, it's going to show up the updated item, because the block entity renderer inside of a new package right here, this is going to be the renderer package. I'm going to create that. This is the gem polishing block entity renderer, right? This is a client only class. It will implement the block entity renderer of type gem polishing station block entity. Let's hover over this, implement the render method, and there we go. Now we want to make a constructor. This is going to be the gem polishing station block entity renderer right here with a block entity renderer provider dot context. I'm going to call this the context right here. We can then keep the rest of the constructor empty, and then the render method is what is interesting. And here we want to make a item renderer. We're going to call this the item renderer equal to Minecraft.getInstance.getItemRenderer. We then need the item stack that we want to render. That is just going to be a new item stack from pBlockEntity.getRenderStack. This is, of course, the method that we've just created before. Then we're going to say pPostStack.pushPose. This basically denotes, hey, we're now going to change some stuff in the post stack. So we're going to manipulate whatever we're going to render in just a moment. First of all, we're going to translate it to 0.5, 0.75f, and 0.5f. This is just going to change the position, whatever we're rendering. Then we're going to change the scale of whatever we're rendering by calling the scale over here to 35.35.35. That's just going to scale the item down. And then here we can also manipulate the position. So we're going to rotate it around with the positive x-axis. And we're going to say rotate degrees by 270. And that should pretty much be everything we need to do. Now, the one limitation that we have is because our custom gem polishing station block right here doesn't have a facing block state property, the item that's going to be rendered is always going to face the same way, regardless of which way we're going to set down the block. So that would be one additional thing that you could do. You could think about adding the facing property here to the gem polishing station block over here, but it is not strictly necessary. Now, before we call the item renderer, we first of all need a private int, and that is going to be the getLightLevel method. This is just a helper method, which is going to take in a level, making sure we choose net Minecraft world level right here. And the block pause, well, this pause, this will just get the brightness and make sure that the texture of the item that we want to render is properly done. This is the light layer.block, passing in the pause over here. We can actually duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D. This is then the S light layer for the sky. And then we just want to return light texture.pack, packing in B light and S light, and there we go. And now we can actually render the item. So this is going to be the item renderer.render static. What do we want to render? You can see we have a lot of things that we have to actually pass in. The things we want to render is the item stack itself. Then item display context is going to be fixed. Then we want to get light level. So this is the method that we've just created. We're going to say p block entity.getLevel. Second parameter is going to be p block entity.getPause, or getBlockPause, because that's the actual position. After the second closing parenthesis, comma, and then we want to call the overlay texture.noOverlay, p pose stack, p buffer, and then p block entity.getLevel, and the seed is just going to be 1. That's going to be okay. And then at the very end, we want to pop the pose stack, and with that, we basically have the render method done. So all of these manipulations right here, right, the translating, the scaling, that's all been calculated beforehand, basically. But you'll see, basically, translating it to 0.5, and 0.5 is going to translate the item that is supposed to be rendered at the very middle of the block, right? That's the idea, 75% up from the bottom of the block. So it's going to be fairly straightforward, but you can see we're not using the block entity renderer right now. Why would that be? Well, we still need to properly take this and actually register it with the block entity. This is done in an event, and I believe we have this correctly. Yeah, we have the mod client events, right? This is the mod event bus client events. If you don't have this class, then you just create it. Make sure to have the event bus subscriber over here with your mod ID, the mod bus, and then the value of dist.client. And then here we're going to make a new public static void register BER method. This is going to be the entity renderers event dot register renderers. I'm going to call this the event over here. And there's going to be event.register block entity renderer, this one right here. Mod block entities.gem polishing be.get. And then the gem polishing block entity renderer : new. There we go. Let's not forget the @subscribe event. Also quite important. So make sure that this is done correctly. Of course, all of the code, as always, is available to you in the description below in the GitHub repository. So no worries at all. And with that done, we now have the block entity renderer done. So let's jump into the game and see if it works. All right, fans, let's back in Minecraft, and let's just put in a raw sapphire over here, and you can see there it renders. And once it has actually created the sapphire, it changes to a sapphire. This is exactly the logic that we basically created, right? It's going to show the input slot, and then once the output slot has something, then it's going to show the output slot. Now, the one thing that I, mentioned, if I were to place it down like this, let's say, and I put in one of the raw sapphires, it's going to be sort of, on its head, right? Because, well, I mean, it's always going to face this way. That's what I meant with the facing property, right? You could add a block state property to the block so that the block rotates / you then rotate the item inside of it. That's a tiny addendum that you could make, but it's not strictly necessary. This was just an example here for a block entity renderer. And, it's pretty freaking cool. And what's also pretty cool is this video right here, where we'll add some wood to Minecraft, preparing for some pretty cool topics. Hope to see you there. So, yeah.